evening, everyone. As mayor and on behalf of my city council colleagues, Carla Bragg, Joyce Connors, Rick Jones, Kevin Lynch, David Resnick, and Lynn Sutton, we thank you for joining us for this special occasion. I want to extend a collective and special welcome to the veterans representing all the military branches. We thank you for your service to our nation and for the freedoms that we enjoyed at this day. Please stand or raise your hand so we can recognize all of the veterans in the room. This evening's event is a dedication of the display featuring the ship's bell from the USS Dubuque, which was part of the United States Navy fleet from 1966 to 2011 when it was decommissioned. I know we have a number of Navy veterans with us today and a couple of special guests. Roger Jones, Jr., who served on the USS Dubuque from October 1969 to January of 1974, and Billy Schrader, who served on the USS Dubuque in 2008. Let's give those two a hand. Are there any other vets by chance who are here that may have served on the USS Dubuque? Okay. All right. We'll tell him thank you very much for his service too. We also have with us members of the Dubuque Council of the United States Navy League. I want to thank you all for joining us today. The USS Dubuque was an Austin-class amphibious dock, or LPD, which is why the USS Dubuque was also known as LPD-8. LPDs are warships that embark, transport, and land elements of a landing force for a variety of expeditionary warfare missions. LPDs carry weapons, supplies, vehicles, aircraft, soldiers from one end of the globe to the other. I'd like to take a few minutes providing some background on the USS Dubuque itself. This information is actually part of the display created by Jeff Westrom, President of Creative Services for J.W. Morton and Associates of Cedar Rapids. Jeff is with us today, so let's acknowledge his work. Thank you, Jeff. The USS Dubuque. She never failed to accomplish a mission in all her time at sea. Between 1968 and 1975, the Dubuque, or the Mighty Eight, notched 5 Western Pacific deployments, charting across the Indian Ocean for duty focused on the Vietnam War. The ship featured a landing platform dock, allowing helicopters and small aircraft carriers to partner with the Water Warrior. The setup helped operate aerial missions of all kinds. In June of 1971, Dubuque made waves as it left with the last Marine Corps helicopter to exit Vietnam. From conducting mine clearance operations in Haiphong Harbor to launching troop lifts in Okinawa, Japan, the USS Dubuque was a safe haven at sea. Operation Frequent Wind in 1975 rallied Dubuque to assist one of the most dramatic missions of the Vietnam War. As the North Vietnamese Army closed in on Saigon, the capital of South Vietnam, the U.S. military launched a rescue of over 7,000 American and Vietnamese citizens from the fragile city. Soldiers spent a frantic 2 days transferring refugees from helicopters to waiting command ships in a rescue staged by air and by sea. Joining Movement Transport Task Force 76.5, Dubuque received a portion of the 1,400 rescue flights that were part of the largest helicopter evacuation on record. President Ford awarded the craft humanitarian service medals for its role in saving the lives of more than 1,000 Americans and nearly 6,000 Vietnamese citizens. Dubuque shuttled more than just American troops into regions riddled with conflict. Over its course on the seas, the ship received special instructions to transport foreign soldiers of interest and civilians, too. In 1968, crew members steered the craft to northern Vietnam to return 14 repatriated prisoners of war following the Vietnam War, a highly publicized event heralded around the world. Shipmates helped evacuate U.S. personnel from the Philippines during a failed coup in 1988, and in 2001, saw the ship's deployment in the Arabian Gulf, where it was assigned enemy prisoner of war handling duties. The USS Dubuque made international headlines in 2010 when Marines aboard the craft raided a German ship commandeered by Somali pirates. It was in the early hours of September 9th, 2010. The ship was housing Combined Task Force 151, a 24-member team of highly specialized Marines, when they received word of a hostile takeover nearby. German motor vessel Magellan Star and its crew members had fallen hostage to 9 Somali pirates that managed to get on board off the coast of Somalia. With stealth and accuracy, the USS Dubuque navigated close enough to deploy the CTF-151, who liberated the 11 hostages as the pirates surrendered within minutes, all without firing a single shot. Military officials across the globe lauded the USS Dubuque and its success, making the first time the U.S. military boarded a pirate-captured ship. A decorated history at sea earned accolades for the Dubuque. Among the most notable is the Navy Unit Commendation, an award given to any ship, squadron, or crew that displayed outstanding heroism in action. It also received rights to display an E on board for excellence in maritime warfare, engineering survivability, command and control, logistics management, and safety. To earn an E, ships demonstrate superior achievement in tests conducted throughout the year and in day-to-day duties. Additional honors include 3 Battle Efficiency Awards and 3 Armed Forces Expeditionary Medals. More than 4 decades and dozens of operations came to an honorable close on June 30th, 2011. As the last of the 29 total commanding officers, Lieutenant Commander Ivan A. Jimenez helmed the ship's final run and laid the American masterpiece to rest. Naval tradition set a decommissioning ceremony in motion to pay tribute to the craft and its hundreds of dedicated servicemen and women. I was honored to travel with former Mayor Walt Pregler, who was mayor at the time of the commissioning of the USS Dubuque, to attend and participate in the decommissioning ceremony. For Walt, it was, as I recall him sharing, coming full circle. Before I talk about the decommissioning ceremony, let's hear from Walt about the commissioning ceremony. Walt?
Thank you, Roy. A little bit of history about Dubuque, though. This was not the very first ship named after our fair city. There was a USS Dubuque in World War I, and 2 prominent Dubuquers served on it. They were firemen. It was a coal-fired vessel. One of them was a dispatcher for old H&W Motor Company by the name of Herb Witter, and the other one was our Honorable Chief of Police, Percy Lucas. We took Percy with us when we went to the commissioning in September of 1967, and it was great. The ceremony was great. The city of Dubuque was good. Father Sullivan from Loras College sent 4 paintings, watercolor paintings that he had made and had framed, and we presented them, and they went into the non-commissioned officers' mess. So there was always a remembrance of Dubuque. One thing I always remembered when I looked at the bunks, being 6'1", they were about 1.5 feet shorter than I was, so you would have to be in there battled up. But we had a very good trip. We had a very good time. There were about a dozen Dubuquers there for the commissioning ceremony. But I was also in on the christening ceremony with Governor Harold Hughes and Colette Lagan, where we broke the bottle of champagne and put her in the water. The Dubuque was built in Pascagoula, Mississippi by the Ingalls Shipyard, a division of Litton Industries. And I was amazed to find out there was a native Dubuquer down there that was an engineer on the design of it. His name was Eldon Passback. So wherever that Dubuque went, there was a Dubuquer with it. I cannot remember the sailor's name, but there was a Dubuque sailor aboard the ship as a member of the crew when it was commissioned. But one thing about it, that the hold would hold all of the mechanized amphibious units for a company or a battalion of Marines, I don't know which. And that was a very large hold. They could sink it 30 foot in the water because everything on the deck toward the hull would empty, and then they would sink it, and then they had a shelf deck. And the reason they called it a shelf deck, that could fold up to the sides of the ship and be wide open. And the amazing thing, the crew was playing softball in it the night before the commissioning. We were all invited from the city council to go over and have dinner with the officers on the ship, and we watched them play softball in the hold. And I myself still, it was the biggest joy, one of the biggest joys of my life, a very, very, very honorable privilege to be able to go to the commissioning, to the christening, and then to the decommissioning. Kind of makes you feel old when you see a ship being born and then being retired. But I can't thank the citizens of Dubuque and the City Council enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those words, Walt. As both Walt and my wife Deborah will attest, the decommissioning ceremony we attended in 2011 was a powerful, perfectly executed, formal yet solemn, and highly emotional final ceremony for all in attendance. In fact, my wife to this day can't talk about that decommissioning without a tear coming to her eye, and it was the last time was last night when we were talking about some of the highlights. Captain Dale Fuller, commander of Amphibious Squadron 3, gave the ship a proper send-off. Dubuque has truly led the way, and her legacy will be felt for years to come, he stated. With a nod to the ship's history, Dubuque's insignia pays tribute to the craft's past and American heritage. Julian Dubuque, as founder of the ship's namesake city, is remembered through the raised tower at the bottom of the insignia. The outline mimics the stone tower marking the explorer's gravesite in Dubuque. Stars protect either side of the tower, symbolizing two U.S. Navy ships bearing the name Dubuque, the first of which, a gunboat, as Walt was referring to, PG-17, served decades before the mighty 8 took to sea. An 8 encircles the stars, paying homage to Landing Platform Dock 8 and its faithful run as an amphibious warfare ship. A sword slices through the frame as a demonstration of Dubuque and its shipmates' vow to protect and serve wherever they're called. Our country, heritage, and future served as the ship's motto from its first commissioning in 1967 to its final run over 4 decades later. Dubuque's original sailors set the precedent for defending the United States, creating a legacy for future crew members to uphold. Sailors helming the ship in its decades-long run took honor in defending their craft and their nation, helping protect America's future. This just touches on some of the incredible history surrounding the USS Dubuque. And now we turn our focus to the ship's bell. Both practical and symbolic, the ship's bell carries traditions connecting sailors past and present. The USS Dubuque bell is solid and weighs almost 200 pounds. It is a cherished artifact, and we have been granted the honor of sharing it with our community through this display while it remains on loan from the Department of the Navy. And I was told by Roger Jones, Jr., one of the old shipmates, that he actually rang that bell every day. That was one of his duties. So thank you for that, and congratulations for having that honor, Robert. I want to thank the Dubuque Council of the United States Navy League for their esteemed role in this effort, as well as our remarkable city staff who coordinated the project, including Leisure Services Manager Marie Ware, Parks Division Manager Stephen Feisel, and Assistant Planner Dave Johnson. And at this time, I invite Glenn Gassman, President of the Dubuque Council of the United States Navy League, to say a few words. Glenn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Glenn Gaspin. I am the President of the United States Navy League Council, Dubuque Council. And back in early 2011, Master Chief Dean Hubbard brought it to the attention of our council that the Dubuque was going to be decommissioned and how great it would be if we could get a hold of that bell for our city. Well, Jim Unson was the president at the time, and he contacted Mike Van Milligan. And then in true military fashion, Mike delegated it to Marie Ware. So Marie had to file, what was it? It was a form in triplicate. She submitted Form 1223, 1683, 4236, and 4236 Alpha, revisions 12 and 13. Yeah, the Navy really puts the work in paperwork. But my point is that Marie really did the heavy lifting on this mission with all the running around she did, the paperwork, the phone calls, everything. Thank you very much, Marie. The Dubuque Council is very grateful for your service because without her, we wouldn't be here tonight. A little bit about the Navy League. It was formed in 1902 under the encouragement of President Theodore Roosevelt. It's a powerful voice to Congress and the American public for a stronger sea service, as well as it has grown into the foremost citizens organization to serve, support, and stand with the sea services, which is the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, and the U.S. flagged Merchant Marine. If you think about that for a moment, out of those four services I just mentioned, there are thousands of boats, planes, and ships, over 700,000 men and women just in uniform. That's not counting DoD contractors, military contractors, and any other support personnel, Coast Guard auxiliary, which would take well over 1 million. There's billions of dollars in equipment, and it's operating 24/7 worldwide, all for one multi-pronged reason, and that is to protect the U.S. and her allies, to provide humanitarian relief, and to promote commerce. Now, we all know the military is out there doing bad things to bad people when necessary, and it doesn't really affect a lot of people back home. However, commerce does. So, when you see a barge locking through Dubuque, okay, they can only do that because of the Coast Guard. U.S. Coast Guard cutter Wyaconda is in the ice harbor. I didn't see if she's in there today, but normally she's home ported in the ice harbor, and she covers the navigational aids from the Twin Cities all the way to the Quad Cities. That entire area she's responsible for buoys, lights, anything that's used for navigation on that river in that area. So without her, we couldn't move barges up and down the river. Now, for every barge that comes through Dubuque, that is up to 870 semi-trucks not passing through Dubuque. Okay, that means reduced road wear. That's 10 times less fuel consumed, which reduces retail costs. It's 200 times fewer harmful emissions, which reduce greenhouse gases. So I just want to go off script here for 1 minute. The gentlemen that are here from the USS Dubuque, I'm a sailor, and I know what it's like to serve on a ship and love that ship, but to have a piece of your ship in your hometown, priceless, just priceless. It gets me right here. So on behalf of the United States Navy League, Dubuque Council, I would like to thank the City of Dubuque and for their efforts of bringing the Dubuque's bell back to her namesake, even though it's on loan. Like Marie said earlier, before we got the bell, it was taken to Washington, D.C. and measured and weighed and cataloged. I guess so we don't try to pull a switch on them and send something else back instead of the original thing. So thank you very much. And anybody who'd like to learn more about the Navy League or the seagoing services, we meet the last Wednesday of every month at Mount Pleasant Home at noon for lunch, and you're more than welcome. And I'd like to present Mayor Buell with a surprise here. The first bottle of Brasso is on me. Yeah, the sailors, they all laugh, they know. And the proper time to shine the ship's bells when? Does anybody know?
8 o'clock in the morning.
No, 12 or midnight to 4.
Well, if you had a good night.
Usually the mid-watch polishes the bells.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm going to have to ask for some advice on how to do that the proper way. Well, thank you, Glenn, for those remarks. Tonight we've gathered to officially dedicate the USS Dubuque ship's bell display in honor of the dedicated men and women who served on board the USS Dubuque. Like Dubuque's Veterans Memorial Plaza, Chaplain Schmidt Memorial, and Veterans Memorial Park, we trust this display will serve as a reminder and reflection of the rich heritage of the USS Dubuque, both its service and the service and sacrifice of our veterans. On behalf of my City Council colleagues and City staff, thank you again for joining us this evening. For those viewing the television broadcast of this program after tonight's event, I encourage you to visit the display, which is located on the second floor foyer of the historic Federal Building, located at 350 West 6th Street. The display will be accessible Monday through Friday during business hours. Again, thank you all for joining us, and enjoy this latest member of our heritage coming back to the city of Dubuque. Thank you very much.
USS Dubuque sailors welcome their loved ones on board for a Friends and Family Day cruise.
We have 382 people assigned to Dubuque today on active duty, and it takes all 382 for this ship to operate as well as it does.
The highlight of the cruise's events was a helicopter vertical replenishment demonstration. Visitors were also given tours and treated to a picnic. The day-long cruise was a great opportunity for guests to connect with their loved ones.
It's been a great opportunity for the Navy to show our spouses, loved ones, kids, family, elders, youngers, what the Navy actually does.
Reporting from San Diego, I'm Seaman Christopher Farrington.
My name is Roger Jones, Jr. I was in the United States Navy and on board the USS Dubuque from 1969 to 1974. I made several Westpacks with her. I was and still am very proud of the ship. Ship's bell means a lot to me, not only because I used to clean it and ring it, but it's part of the ship. And the ship was like home. And this is home. I was born here, raised here, and the bell's now here. That bell was transferred from the operating quarterdeck or the bridge. It was actually on the bridge. Whenever anything had to do with any ceremonies of any kind, such as people, dignitaries coming on board or leaving, it was rang. And at 8 o'clock in the morning, it was rang due to colors. It's a good bell. She was cleaned all the time. I was a ship's serviceman. I dealt with the laundry, ship's welfare and rec, ship's stores, small stores, big stores, clothing stores, vending machines. Plus, I also had my military obligations as far as my building assignments, which was various different spots on the ship. My general quarters station was engineering. My sea detail station was the ship's bell and whistle on the bridge. My fire detail was Pride Fly. I actually was back by the flight deck and working with the flight officer.
From Commander, Naval Surface Fleet Pacific to Expeditionary Strike Group 3, Amphibious Squadron 3, USS Dubuque, LPD-8. Subject, Guidance. Per references Alpha and Bravo, USS Dubuque has been authorized for fiscal year 11 decommissioning. This message provides authorization to commence inactivation and subsequent decommissioning. USS Dubuque will be designated as a retention mobilization asset and classified out of commission in reserve on this day, 30 June 2011. Executive Officer, make preparations to decommission United States ship Dubuque.
Make preparations to decommission Dubuque, guys, sir.
Department heads, report. Sir, all boats have been removed. Our anchor's house, 4 anchors been removed. Ship's boats will frame with Joseph.
Very well. Sir, last meal has been served. All galley secured. Jack and the Dove has been secured. Very well. Sir, all secure about the decks. The running lights have been extinguished. The cannonballs have been removed. The cannons have been spiked. Very well.
Sir, all boiler cars extinguished. Boilers are secured. Props and rudders are locked, sir.
Very well. Sir, Dubuque is ready for decommissioning.
Very well. Commodore, request permission to decommission Dubuque. Very well. Executive Officer, demand the ship.
Demand the ship, guys, sir.
Officer Nate, demand the ship. Demand the ship, aye, sir.
Strike 8 bells. Haul down the colors. Executive Officer, secure the watch.
Secure the watch eyes, sir. On direct.